Hi, this is Edithson Abelard, and welcome to the next video in our introduction to the new Unity UI. In this one, we're going to focus on images, two types of images, a regular image and tiled images. Now, if you've never seen this before, this is the latest release in the CC 2014 October update, and this is actually probably one of my favorite releases in terms of feature sets. And two things that were added were this libraries option, which allows us to take any asset really and drop it into the library and reuse them. And so these actually came from Illustrator, which is where we do most of our vector work. And I just drop it in here, and then now I can easily gain access to it in Photoshop, which is where I'm actually exporting them. There's actually a new export type, which is still generated. They just made it look fancy, so you don't have to type everything in. And if you extract the assets, I'm going to bring this window over. You can see now you can change the type of extraction. You can change it to PNG 28, a JPEG if you like. You have scale access. You can also make it an SVG if you want. And another powerful feature is to be able to click and choose if you want to make this an HD or SD image. So if you're using mobile, you can definitely take advantage of, let's say you're on an iPad, you may get away with using something that's at half res, but really you want to use something that maybe is a double, or with the iPhone Plus or iPhone 6 Plus, you may even want to go triple. So the quality is really sharp on those better displays. So just a new tool that we use to export our images now, which I thought was really cool. I've already gone ahead and exported these out. Something else I did was actually change these. When you import new textures, depending on your workflow, this might either be already set to sprite or to texture. Because this is a 3D project and not a 2D project, these would have came in as textures. And so when you click on this, you'll see that there's this black image. There's this black mat in the background, and that's because it's respecting it as a texture and not as a 2D UI. And that's what you do. You come here, you shift select, go down to texture type, and you want to set this to sprite and UI. And then you just hit apply. Right now I have a packaging tag set to Apple, but that's just for optimization, which you don't need to do right away, but it is an option if you do have the Pro version. So images, right? Enough about the assets. Let's get started with images. So if you come in here and you just create a new image, as you can see, there's no canvas, no event system. If I create image, it automatically creates those for me. You'll notice two things. One, I'm in 2D mode, and I'm using this Rect Transform tool. It's important that you use that tool instead of the other ones, because there are a lot of special cases where you get little highlights like that just work better with the UI system. So if you create a new image with no source image attached to it, it pretty much is a solid color. So if you wanted to create a background, let's say red, and you want to have like a slight tint to it, you see you have a red background, a slight tint. Really cool. But what we really want to do is create an image, right? So if I grab this, and let's say we're going to create, I don't know, this might be something like a collection, right? I can go ahead and create this and drop this into a source image. Now you'll notice two things. One, you'll see that our image is stretched like crazy, and it doesn't look as vibrant as this one that we have here. You can see this one looks extremely vibrant. So what's the difference between them? Well, if we come back and we click on our image tag, you see our image component has a color attached to it. Now when you don't have a source image, it actually is just a solid color. But when you do have a source image, it's actually a tint. So if we change this, we can actually change the tint. So if we want to make this a green apple, we can easily make it a green apple. So that's what the color changes when you have a source image attached to it, which is relatively cool. Now our apple is still skewed a little bit. It's not at the right perspective. Well, the team at Unity actually added this preserve aspect, which is really just taking the original image's aspect ratio and forcing it, which will fix our problem. So we just check that. You'll see automatically our image now it fits completely in our bounding box, and if I change it, depending on whether I go width or height, it automatically scales correctly. Now, if you're a Photoshop user, this is equivalent to using Shift. And in our case, because our image came in at a weird aspect ratio, or our bounding box, that's the reason why we had this weird shape that happened. So you just click on Preserve Aspect Ratio, and it will always preserve that size for you. Like I said, because we have tint, actually we don't need to zoom in, but because we have the tint selected with our source image, this will tint green. So all we have to do is click on this, make sure our alpha is set to 255, which is completely white, and we want to make sure our color is set to white. Then we'll have our original image. We're just going to rename this one real quick so we don't get confused. And now let's talk about our second image type. Now you're going to right click on UI, and create an image. Remember, this is under the canvas. You can drop this out and then things break, but you want to make sure it's under the canvas. And I'm going to rename this to stars. And what I'm going to do now is grab this star pattern here, and we're going to just drop it on there. And something that I purposely skipped over is this is image type that drop down. So you have sliced, you have tiled, and you have filled. Well, we want to do tiled, and the way tiled works is actually, if I go back to simple, not sliced. If I go back to simple, if I take this and I just scale it up, as you can see, it doesn't tile. Now, if you wanted to do tiles, you could duplicate and just go across and keep doing that. But then what happens if you want to change this? As you can see, it's no longer tiling correctly. Well, we can easily tile by changing our image type. If I click down on our image type and I select tiled, you'll see now it automatically changes and tiles our image correctly. And all I have to do now is scale this to fit whatever zone I need it in, and now we have a tiled image. Now you'll notice something weird, which for the life of me, I can't understand why Unity did this like this. I actually spoke to a few people there, and they too sometimes baffled by it, but for somebody it made sense. Although the apple is on top of the star layer, they have an inverse, first in, first out type of thing, where the star needs to be on top because that's the furthest away from the screen. I don't quite know a really simple way to explain that and for it to actually make sense. But if you ever run into a problem where things are overlapping and it's not in a way you want, then all you want to do is just change the layers. So there goes our image component. Not a lot to it, but you can do a lot of things simply by adding these two, tiled or just a simple image. And if you're using buttons, then you can also use slice. This image isn't made for slice, but you can also use sliced. Another thing that we can do, which I'm going to create, I'm just going to duplicate the apple, is you can use a fill. So how does fill work? Well, I'm just Shift and Alt, dragging to scale that in the center. If I change this from simple to filled, we get two new options, which this I absolutely love, because there are going to be times when you want to animate and you probably don't want to just fade in something every time. So right now we have a fill method. We can do horizontal, vertical, and we can do radials. This fill amount is the amount that it fills. So as you can see, it's kind of like a wipe effect, and it just allows you just to wipe this on and off. If I do 360, then you get the full from the center wipe. So if you think about a clock or cheese or something like that, you can just change the value. So if a player has health, you don't need to make the bar a straight bar. You can actually make it a radial bar and just put in your graphic and show your health this way. Now these options just allow you to choose where it fills from. So if you want to start from the bottom right or the top left, and those are these options that you get. If you go horizontal, then you only have left and right. So it kind of makes sense, so you can just fill this in and out. And those are our image types. So I hope you enjoyed, and if any of this escaped you, please just replay the video until you get it all. And if you have any questions, please drop a line, Skype, Twitter, Google+. I'm always available if I'm available, and if I am available, I will do my best to answer any questions and do any videos that may help you out. He is an Abelard.